Hello, welcome to the Captains at Center Ice podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Kessner, and today I have a guest with me. His name is Ryan, and I went to school with him at college, and we did a couple podcasts together up there while I was with Cardinal Sports Live, actually. And so, yeah, it was, we enjoyed our time together talking about hockey and all that, and today I was actually going to talk about bracket, talk about the bracket and my thoughts and opinions on what I think's going to happen and whatnot. Of course, I'm always wrong, so don't take what I say as fact. But that being said, that's what I'm going to do today. Give my thoughts and opinions. Playoffs start tomorrow. It's Tuesday, so they start tomorrow. A little bit about myself if you have not seen me before. I am a Ducks and a Rangers fan. I will keep my bias to a minimum since the Ducks are in a playoff spot. And Ryan here is an Avs fan, but he will also keep his bias to a minimum.
I will.
So yeah, that's a little bit about myself. Ryan, do you have anything you want to say?
Well, just thank you for having me, and I'm ready to get this bracket breakdown ready to go.
Yeah, I'm down to talk about this stuff. This is the time of the year that I love talking about on my podcast. So, for those of you listening, before I start, by the way, I am sick, so if you can hear in my voice, that's why I'll be drinking this Gatorade while I'm talking to you guys, so that I'm not like coughing constantly. But anyway, yeah, we're just gonna get started. We're gonna start off talking about each specific matchup that we currently know, and then after that, we'll break it. We'll break down what we think's gonna happen after that. So, let's start in the West, Ryan, and let's talk about Nashville and Colorado.
Okay.
I know you're an Avs fan, but I gotta be realistic here. I don't know what's gonna happen with Colorado in this series. Part of me thinks that they're not gonna last very long just because Varlamov is out, and then one of the star defensemen is out. And
Yeah, Eric
McKinnon
Johnson.
has been kind of as of late in terms of scoring. Now
Well,
go
that
ahead.
whole first line when they went to the California didn't score a point on 5-on-5 hockey, so that's been an issue for them. But they turned it on against the Blues when needed and scored 6 points, so that was helpful.
Yeah, and I mean it's just one of those things where I feel like they've been relying so much on McKinnon. Not to
Mm-hmm.
say, I mean, McKinnon's an outstanding player and whatnot. And this is similar to kind of my thoughts and opinions on Edmonton as well, which is relying on one player and then having the line kind of feed off of him is not really good for success, I don't think, going for a deep playoff push.
No, it
Uh,
isn't. And Bernier, I don't know if he can steal a series yet. I know he has playoff hockey experience with the Ducks and the King, being a Kings backup, I believe. So
mhm.
so it'll be interesting.
He was also a Maple Leafs goaltender for a while, and Toronto absolutely hated him. But I mean, Toronto is Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
so their defense isn't really all that outstanding. I think it'll. I don't know. I don't really see Colorado doing all that great. That being said, I want to talk a little bit about Nashville. Nashville is really deep this year. If you didn't watch last year, the playoffs,
Where were you?
I'm sorry. Yeah, where were you? um, um, but yeah, Nashville went all the way to the finals. They lost to Pittsburgh. Um, they did get some depth. Johansson and Forsberg are healthy, which is good for Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Their defensive depth is pretty much there. Mike
One of the
Fisher,
best.
yeah, Mike Fisher is back after leaving, saying he was retiring, and he's like, I'm coming back out of retirement, pulling a Brett Favre. Um, I don't know. That was interesting, but he's playing on the fourth line. Um, I mean, Pecorine, while I think he's an inconsistent goaltender, is definitely a force to be reckoned with, but with any team that you have that ends up playing against him, especially in the first round. So I don't know. That's how I look at Nashville, and their center depth is pretty good. They picked up Nick Bonino from the Pittsburgh Penguins, who helped them win, by the way, Pittsburgh. So that's actually kind of helpful for Nashville, in my opinion.
To me, what scares me is that they don't have that. They're very balanced offensively, but they don't have that one superstar to rely on to get them out of a slump if that happens. It might be Forsberg with 64 points, but to me, that's what I'm scared about.
I think they're gonna rely a whole lot on Forsberg. Um, that they did last year. They did rely on Johansson a
Hmm.
little bit as well. Those were the two players they focused on, at least last year. I think this year their superstar is going to be Philip Forsberg. I think that's who they're going to focus with. The issue with that is Philip Forsberg is I don't know. They didn't play a whole lot of I don't think they played a whole lot of defensively strong teams last year. Philip Forsberg got shut down by Pittsburgh with a porous defense.
Hmm.
From Pittsburgh. I don't know. I agree to an extent, which is like, for example, if we're gonna talk about like Chicago, Patrick Kane is a superstar, right? I'm not
Yes.
sure I consider Forsberg in that same level. Like, I think he's a
No.
star for their team, but I'm not sure I consider him a superstar, which is
Would
what I
you
think you're saying.
would you consider Miko Rantanen a star? I mean, 80 points and everything.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really not sure. Um, Playoffs are a different beast.
Yes, they
So
are.
with a regular season, I mean that's good. I want to see more though.
Yeah.
They need balance is what they need.
Hmm.
Last year, I will say this year, PK Subban has actually done well. Last year he did not do well.
No.
Or compared to what he normally does, I should say. He was still okay. It was just not like the PK we know. So if he gets his offense going in the playoffs, that could be a game changer, but we'll have to
Yeah.
see. I'm not really quite sure if I am a fan of that. The other thing is I'm not a fan of Peter Laviolette. I know a lot of Predators fans are probably like rolling over right now. Like, are you crazy? I think Peter Laviolette, he's a good coach, and he definitely got them to a Stanley Cup final. I I don't know. His reactions last year gave me cause for concern if you're going to be a head coach. With how relaxed he was being in the Stanley
Hmm.
Cup final. I mean, you want to be relaxed, but you also want to know like it's a game 6. You want to be in a game 6 like
Well, he
motivation.
was the second wild card, so to even be there is a blessing in itself. I mean, maybe he was just true relaxed going into it like that
I,
with
I
his mindset being an eight seed essentially.
Yeah, that I think that's a fair comment. That definitely is a fair comment. Um, Still gives me cause for concern a little bit. So, but anyway, um, any final thoughts on this matchup? We're gonna break it down later. So, um, like
My final thoughts is if the Avalanche can get past the physicality that the defense provides, I think they could pull an upset.
fair.
It all depends on how if the number one line decides to show up or not. Because against a physical team, they usually disappear along the board. So if they don't, if they can achieve getting past the physicality, then and score, then I think they can get past Nashville.
I agree. I think there is a possibility for an upset here. Will it happen? I'm not really quite sure. Well, I'll give my thoughts and opinions on it later, but Nathan McKinnon definitely needs to get hot if they have any chance of winning.
Oh, of course. And
Uh,
Bernie needs to play out of his mind.
yeah. And quite honestly, the defense needs to play well as well.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to understand that they're gonna be stretched a little bit here. Playing against, I mean, Nashville's not the most balanced offense, but they do have more options than Colorado does. So, yeah, I think that's what's gonna have to happen is defense and goaltending are gonna have to they're gonna have to play out of their minds, and offense has
Mm.
to step up the game to where they were, coming into playoffs.
Yeah.
So, that's all I have to say. We'll break again. Like I said, we're gonna give our thoughts and opinions on what we think is gonna happen later. All right, let's talk Winnipeg, Minnesota. We're just gonna go down the line. Winnipeg, Minnesota. Ryan, you want to start?
Yeah, to me, this is a goaltending matchup where it starts is Devin Dubnyk versus Connor Hellebuyck, and Connor Hellebuyck being the first USA goaltender to do 60 games, I believe, is pretty a good accomplishment. And the way he did it, not looking awful, looking really stellar, shows me that the Winnipeg Jets can go deep with Connor, and the fact that they go two lines deep. I mean, to have Patrick Laine on your second line, like holy crap, like you guys are for real, you're the real deal. It's why I think you guys can make it to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, Winnipeg is a interesting story. I think Patrick Laine definitely. I mean, he got drafted with Austin Matthews, and both of those players have played outstanding. Both different types of players. But Patrick Laine has definitely helped them in the scoring column. I think that was the biggest issue with Winnipeg is they needed scoring. That's really what they needed. Um, Connor Hellebuyck has played out of his mind.
Hmm.
And I mean, you got Paul Stastny and some of the other big names who have kind of stepped up their game.
Yeah.
They're definitely a force to be reckoned with, in my estimation. What about Minnesota?
Minnesota, I'm kind of worried because they lost Ryan Suter
That's fair.
to a broken fibula, so I don't know how their D line's gonna show. Um, so I'm not sure. And they kind of remind me of the Avalanche and being a one line team with Stahl providing most of their Eric Stahl being providing their most of their goals and everything. So I'm kind of worried about that.
Yeah, I think
What
that's a fair estimation.
What are your thoughts?
I I agree. I mean, Suter was a definitely a big loss there. Devin Dubnyk, I think, is a little bit of an inconsistent goaltender. Bruce Boudreau, don't even get me started about Bruce Boudreau. I don't think he's even qualified to be coaching right now. And if you want Minnesota to win, he's definitely not the coach to win you a Stanley Cup. He hasn't even gotten them deep in the playoffs. Um, Zach Parise has been cold his
Oh,
entire time in Minnesota. He is not the Zach Parise I remember from New Jersey, with
yeah.
Ilya Kovalchuk when they went to the finals against the Kings. I mean, Zach Parise is a good player. I don't know what happened when he got to Minnesota. It's just like he fell off the face of the earth. Um, I mean,
Well, he's only at 24 points, so that's really off for him. 24 points.
yeah, I mean, he was definitely like one of the key reasons that they were able to play against in the finals against the Kings when New Jersey went to the finals. Now, granted, Ilya Kovalchuk was also on that team. I mean, they had some offensive prowess, and Zach Parise was a part of that, and I have not seen that at all. He started to sort of come back, I guess, a little bit, but I mean, he's not on the team basically. He's just
Yeah.
dead weight right now.
Well, to
Um,
be 24 points, that means you should be on a third, maybe fourth line.
yeah, he's like a second line player right now, from
Yeah,
what I remember. Eric
he is.
Stahl, good for Eric Stahl. I'm
Oh
quite
yeah,
honestly. I watched him in New York when he got traded from Carolina. Uh, and I saw the potential, but it was like he just wasn't able to like fully harness it, to get back to his former self. And I don't know. It's just it's good for him to be in Minnesota, to be back to where he was, to be a goal scorer. And he's done his job. I'll give him credit. He's done his job there. That being said, like you said, relying so much on Eric Stahl to get you games, probably not going to happen. Um, if you make it past the first round,
I just think the Jets are just much more deeper, and they have a better goaltender than the Wild do. So that's why I feel like the Jets will beat. I honestly could see a sweep here.
I think that's a fair estimation, but I've been surprised before. But I mean, it's one of those things where Winnipeg is just so deep offensively. Like their defense is probably about the same in terms of where they're at, in my estimation. But it's the offense that kills it, in my opinion, because the goaltending and the defense are they're good. I think Devin Dubnik's played all right this season, but I think Connor Hellebuck and Devin Dubnik are pretty much going to be pretty equal. The only difference is I think Winnipeg's offense is going to take it. That's where I kind of lean on it. When I look at this matchup, at least. All right, let's move on. Let's go down to the Pacific side of it. Let's go to Vegas versus LA. Now, this is an interesting matchup, and I had a lot of. I'm still thinking about it. Like, where am I?
Yeah,
Um,
it feels like the Twilight Zone, to be honest.
it kind of does. Well, I mean, first of all, when I was at Cardinal Sports Live and we started at the beginning of the season in October, none of us, including me, thought that Vegas would be in the playoffs. And I think that's fair of everyone. But I mean, watching them get to the playoffs was kind of, first of all, the moment it hit January, I was like, okay, they're going to get in a playoff spot. Whether they're first, third, or whatever, it doesn't really matter. They're going to get in a playoff spot, right? But I've had all that time to think about where do I think they're going to end up in terms of like how deep they're going to go. Vegas is just so interesting. They're a speed team. They do have some size, but they're a speed team. They have some deadly offensive players. They have Carlson. They have Neal. I mean,
Neil's kind of dropped off in the second half of the season, though.
that's
In my
true.
opinion,
That's
he
true.
was on the first line and then got moved to the second line. From what I remember.
Yeah, he has dropped off. Carlson has kind of taken over the reins there. But you have players like Perron on the team, who have also helped. So the interesting thing will be, I think, with Vegas. First of all, Fleury is coming out of injury, I think, with concussion issues. So here's the thing with Vegas will Fleury be healthy? If Fleury's not healthy at all in this series, then it's not gonna look good. I don't think.
No, it's not.
Offensively, they're strong. Defensively, I'm not really quite sure what's gonna happen. The thing with playoff hockey is everyone plays a completely different. I shouldn't say completely different, but a more tight and secure way of how they play compared to the regular season. So if you look at an LA Kings team, they might be a little looser in the regular season and like letting goals in and whatnot because it's the regular season. But the moment they get to the playoffs, all their A games are all on. So with Vegas, I'm not really quite sure where they're gonna end up in terms of that. I keep going back and forth because LA is a little. They're not as deep as I want them to be. In terms of depth, I think they're both pretty equal, though. What do you think about Vegas?
Um, Vegas, I just don't know what to expect because they don't. This is the first time it's happened that a expansion team makes it to the playoffs. So I just don't know what to expect. They do have home ice, so I kind of give them the slight advantage, but not by much because of Anze Kopitar and Jeff Carter both. I mean, Anze Kopitar is a potential Hart Trophy candidate, and with Jeff Carter centering the second line, that's and him just coming back from injury. I just think they go deeper than the Vegas Knights, and to
That's
have that playoff experience that the Kings have of the past few years, I think it goes their way.
that's a fair estimation. I think with LA, the experience is a big key factor. Um, Jonathan Quick is back on his game, um, and it'll be interesting. This will be an interesting matchup. Again, I keep going back and forth. Um, I don't know. Even as I'm
I'll
talking,
definitely watch it for sure.
oh yeah. Well, I'm gonna watch. I'm gonna watch as many of them as I can. But this is definitely a matchup I'm gonna pay attention for. Um. All right. Let's move on. Let's talk Anaheim San Jose. This is a matchup that I think a lot of people wanted actually. Um. Even if it was well, it could have been any of the California teams. But first round, two California teams facing off against each other. What more could you want?
Yeah.
What do you think? I'm gonna start with you.
Um. See, Evander Kane has been out. I don't know if they're resting Evander Kane or not, or what's
I
going.
think they are. I think he was
Are
just
they
being
resting?
rested. Yeah, I think
Okay,
so.
because he didn't play against the Avalanche when they had their 81st game or something with them.
Yeah, they're probably resting him.
Um, but so if they're resting him, then I kind of want to give it to the San Jose Sharks. Um, as much as that may hurt you, Josh, but
It's all good.
I well, I have the Ducks in there, and it's a toss up for me. I really don't know who to pick.
I will say I will say this. This is I didn't pick very many series to go to game 7. This is one of them. So, listen, two teams that know each other very, very well.
That's the thing.
Uh,
They're Pacific teams, and they know each other very well.
and they're both big and they're both heavy hitting. The thing that Anaheim has that San Jose does not have, I don't think, is Anaheim has a couple lines with speed on them. I will say this though, San Jose is not a threat to be reckoned, or is not a team to really like, you know.
Take lightly.
Yeah, they're definitely a team this year that um they're kind of back to their form. Um, kind of here's the thing that we'll have to pay attention for. What does Joe Pavelski do if you're a San Jose Sharks? What does Joe Pavelski do? What does Joe Thornton do? And what do some of the other players do? Because if they're relying so much on Evander Kane to get points and win them games, that's not going to go over well, I don't think. Especially going up against your rivals, the Anaheim Ducks. Now, if you're Anaheim, same thing. What is Ryan Getzloff doing? What is Corey Perry doing? What are your other lines doing? What is Ricard Raquel doing? What is Ryan Kessler doing? Like I could go all over on both sides. But your stars have to step up. Whoever stars step up, and maybe they both step up. So then it's gonna be, then it'll be a drudge match. And that's kind of how I look at it. I don't know. It'll be an interesting series. I think Anaheim's stars right now are hot.
Yeah.
Perry, Getzloff, and Raquel, and Andre Kasha, who I think gets overlooked. And let's not forget Adam Henrique has made a big difference for the Anaheim Ducks.
But what scares me is you guys not having Cam Fowler.
That's true. I will give you that. We don't have Cam Fowler. and Gibson is injured. But I will say we do have Ryan Miller, who, not saying he's a starting goaltender right now in terms of how he's played, but I mean, he's not an awful backup. And I think if Gibson comes back, because here's the thing, Cam Fowler's out for 2 to 6 weeks. So
come on.
He's one of those players where if he comes back early, so let's say he comes back, he got injured last week. So let's assume he comes back after the series. They might be telling themselves, let's just get to the next round and we'll get Cam Fowler back. The other thing is, Anaheim and San Jose both have outstanding defense from their forwards. It's not just from their defensive players. Some teams really focus a lot on their defensive players making a lot of plays. So, for example, Minnesota is one of those teams. Ryan Suter is one of their best defensive players, and they really rely on him making defensive plays. Anaheim and San Jose don't really have that. They have Cam Fowler's an outstanding defensive player, and John Gibson's an outstanding goaltender. But what I'm saying is, they also have Ryan Getzlaf, Corey Perry, Ryan Kessler, Adam Henrique. Excuse me. All those players and more are strong defensively as well. So they know how to play their position pretty well. Both San Jose has the same thing. Their players also, their forwards know how to play defense. So they're pretty equal teams. The only difference is
I think the home ice comes into a factor here.
I would agree.
The Ducks.
I would agree. And I think just as I was saying, I mean, you got forwards who can play defense. There are LA's also kind of in that area as well, where their forwards can play strong defense. And so the loss of Cam Fowler, it hurts. I agree. But if they can get to a point where, next week or next round, I should say, if they can get to the next round and try and survive till Cam Fowler comes back, because he was only supposed to be out for 2 to 6 weeks. So if
Same
they can
with
survive,
Harry Johnson, 6 weeks.
So it's it's one of those things where if they can get to a point where they get to where Cam Fowler comes back and is healthy, and Gibson's supposed to come back sooner than that, from what I heard. So, yeah, I mean, injuries. I mean, the Ducks have played through injuries this whole season, and look at where. I mean, they're still here. Like, I don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're a deep team, and the same thing would go with San Jose. So, like I said, 7-game series. That's how I look at this.
Yeah.
It's going to be a grudge match all the way through.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the East.
Okay.
And then we'll break down what we think after that. All right, starting from the top, Tampa Bay and New Jersey. What do you think about this, Ryan?
I don't like New Jersey's goaltending, and I really like Vasilevsky from Tampa Bay. And I just don't think Taylor Hall can carry a team like Avalanche are going to have to rely on McKinnon. So I have to give it to. Is Stamkos going to be back by? I think they said he was going to be ready for the series. So I think I have to give it to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I have not heard any, or I have not read anything about Stamkos. But I mean, even if he was out, I think it's a pretty. I think that Tampa Bay easily takes this. I know there's a lot of people who are like, well, they didn't play well coming into the back part of the season. That's okay. Like, Chicago.
Well, they had the Atlantic wrapped up by mid-January or February, didn't they?
I mean, they could have been like half playing.
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of saw the same thing with LA and Chicago a couple years when they end up playing in the Stanley Cup, or playing for Stanley Cup. They kind of did the same thing where it's like they get to a certain point and they start resting their players, like their players like half play, because they know they have it wrapped up. So yeah, I don't know. Taylor Hall is a good player, but the other thing is I think Taylor Hall's a little bit of a puck hog,
Hmm.
and that's gonna end up hurting them, I think. But I'm all credit to New Jersey. They
Oh
got
yeah.
here. I don't think it's gonna be a sweep. I definitely don't think that. But I don't. I think it's gonna be like at it, depending on what happens. But I don't know. My thoughts are it's probably like a 5-game series.
That's what I was thinking. 5 games.
So, but I mean, and we'll talk about that a little bit later too. But that's kind of how I look at this series. Goaltending's. I mean, Vasilevsky didn't play very great. I don't think to the back half of the season, which is not outstanding for Tampa Bay, but I think he can get back into form. Tampa Bay's a lot deeper than New Jersey on every area. That's how I look at it. So I don't know. Anything else you want to add before we move to Boston, Toronto?
Um, no, I think with Steven Stamkos back, I think Tampa Bay rolls New Jersey.
Fair. Um. All right. Let's talk Boston, Toronto. Um. Excuse me. Um. Okay. So this is a rivalry match as well.
Yes, to say the
Um.
least.
And this will be an interesting matchup. Um. Both
Could you
have a.
say it's the most exciting first round playoffs of this year? I want to say yes, but
Um.
because I see this going
For
seven
first
games.
round.
Yes.
Uh. I don't know. I mean, first rounds are always like I always have to wait and see what happens for me to say that. In terms of bracket, yes. In terms of yeah, in terms of bracket, I'd say yes, probably. In terms of like what will actually be that way, I don't know. And we'll find out. I mean, the Stanley Cup playoffs are always exciting, so don't take me wrong on that. Like I'm not saying,
Mm.
oh, this is gonna be a boring first round. I'm not saying that at all. Um, but I think there are some rounds where you kind of are like, I already kind of predicted that already. Like it was expected for that to happen. So I don't know. This will be an interesting series or first round for sure. I'm not
I think I think the series goes 60 goals.
this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
So
think it's going to be a scoring frenzy.
from just the East or just overall.
Just just from this one round. I just think
Okay.
Boston and Toronto, I think they'll go like 54 goals or something like that. Something crazy.
All right. I'm not sure.
Maybe
Yeah,
that's a little high.
I would probably. I mean, if you're gonna go high, I'd probably go in the 40s range.
Yeah, 40s.
um, and I could see that. The question will be who has the better defense, um, and who has the better goaltending. Right now, Boston has the better goaltending, in my opinion. And right now, I have to give the edge of defense to Boston. Toronto is very young, but I mean, I'm not really sure. I mean, youth is part of it, but the more times they get in the playoffs, youth is no longer something you can tell yourself. Um, so we'll see. Defensive depth is in Boston's favor on this one. The other thing is they've been playing red hot coming into the playoffs.
And it looks like Rick Nash might be coming back because of this concussion that he suffered. It looks like he might be coming back, which will help them.
Yeah, I mean, add like Ryan Donato into that. I mean, they're a deep team. Um, they just have to play like it. So I don't know. This matchup is going to be interesting. You have two pretty decent goaltenders. They've played outstanding up to this point, I think. Um, Frederick Anderson is a very he's a good goaltender, but I think he's inconsistent. Um, Reminds me a lot of like Pecorine.
Mhm.
I think Pecorine is kind of inconsistent as well. Strong for good portions of of a series or a game or whatever. But there gets to a point where he just kind of like zones out or whatever. It's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Uh, Goaltending. That's why I put goaltending in Boston's favor, but not by a whole lot. Boston has had some goaltending issues last year and years past. Tuukka Rask has been very poor in net for a while now. But this year he's been pretty good. So I don't know. It'll be interesting. This is definitely a good series. I
I'm
didn't.
looking forward to it.
Yeah. This is not a series that I put in a 7-game series though.
Really?
I put it at 6, uh, if I remember correctly, but I did not. I did not put it at a 7-game series. Um, I don't know. I don't see this matchup going they're not strong enough on every area of the ice together or like facing each other for it to go to a game 7. Like Anaheim, San Jose, goaltending, offense, and defense. Like they're all like a game, right? That's why I picked it as a 7-game series.
Mhm.
This one, I think their defenses are a little shaky. Or at least I think Toronto's is a little shakier than Boston. So that's why I didn't put that there. Um, but yeah. Anything else you want to add before we move on?
Um, I think Tukaras takes the series in 7. I think
Okay.
this is a potential 7-game series. With Austin Matthews maybe scoring, getting hot, but I still think Tukaras stones them in game 7.
I could see it going to a game 7. I just don't predict it going to a game 7. Um, but yeah, that's a fair analysis. I think Austin Matthews. It'll be interesting see what happens with him.
Will
William
it be
Neal.
his? Will it be his first playoffs?
No, he played last year.
Oh, okay.
Um, William Nylander. Um, it'll be interesting to see what's going on, how he reacts to it. I don't know their whole team. It'll be interesting to see how Babcock handles it too. Last year he kind of handled it like they just need to get experience. And now that they have some experience, it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Let's move on. Let's talk about Washington Columbus. What do you think about this series?
I think Washington, yeah, they made it to another 100-point season, but I like Bobrovsky from Columbus Blue Jackets. And I really um who's there? I like Panarin for the Columbus Blue Jackets as well. So I have Columbus Blue Jackets taking this series, and Washington's kind of in a goaltending. I don't want to say crisis, but they don't know who to pick with Holtby and Grubauer. They went with Grubauer, which I can understand, but I think Bobrovsky is a stronger goaltender than what they offer.
That's fair. Um, Ovi is hot. If Washington wants to win anything,
It goes
they
through Ovechkin.
yeah, Ovi has to be hot. So the question is, will Ovi be hot? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. This season will be interesting to see. Um, they have some depth players from like TJ Oshie and all that. Um,
Hmm.
Backstrom, like I could go down the list. They're a pretty deep team. It's just that Oshie doesn't score and Backstrom doesn't score. Well, he scores more than Oshie, but
Yeah.
He's a good center. I don't know. They got some strong players. They just don't put the puck in the net. So yeah, this will be an interesting series. I went back and forth on this one too. This is another one of those that I keep going back and forth on.
I
Because
can see that.
Columbus is just like they're strong because they have Panarin. Like
Yes.
that's kind of how I look at it. Is like Bobrovsky's okay. Like if Panarin was there last year, it would be a different story. Like I think they would have gone far,
Mm-hmm.
or farther, I should say. Um, I don't know. Columbus is just. It'll be interesting to see what happens in this. This is one of those toss up. If for me, you could pick either one, and you could give a
I
logical
don't.
reason.
Yeah, I don't think it goes 7 games though. I don't see it going
That I
7.
agree with. I don't think it goes 7 games. I think
I think
6.
it's a 5 or 6 gamer.
Yeah, I usually go if I'm not sure, I usually go with a 6 game because 5 games is that's a lot of like domination, I think, to get to have a 4 or 5 game series. It's possible, and I've seen it happen a lot of times. My gut always goes to 6 if
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. This series, I don't remember what I picked, but chances are it'll probably change here as we're talking. Again, another one of those series I just keep going back and forth, you know. Um, all right. Any final thoughts you want to throw in before we move on to?
Watch out for Bobrovsky. I think he can get hot real quick, and I think he could steal a series for them.
Yeah, I would also throw in Panarin.
Yeah.
If Panarin plays outstanding, Panarin and Ovechkin, the two Russian people.
Mm-hmm.
Panarin and Ovechkin, those are the people you want to watch out for and see who's playing better than who. Yeah, that's where I want to leave that. Pittsburgh, Philly. This is the series I picked to go to 7 games.
Really?
Yeah. Um, I think Philly has the offensive firepower to do it. The question is, do they have the defensive ability to do it? And yeah, I think that's where it's at. In terms of, I mean, I have a lot of Pittsburgh fans, and I'm sure they'll tell you I'm not worried about Philly. I'm not really quite sure I would be in that. If I was a Pittsburgh fan, I wouldn't be not worried about Philly at all. You got in-state rivals, who know each other. Um, I think Philadelphia would have rather played Washington. That's definitely a case. But you have Giroux, who's been playing pretty well. You have Owain Simmons, who's but he needs if he picks up his game, that's all good for them. Um, you have a couple strong players, you know, with Goss to spare, and their goaltending pretty much is selected if I remember correctly. Aren't they going with Elliott if I remember correctly?
Yeah, they're going with Elliott.
Who he actually has played really well for them. He's not the Elliott I remember from last year, who just was so porous in net that everything went through him. This year he's been pretty good. I think much like Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, if they want to get to the next round, goaltending is going to have to be strong. And I think it's possible with Philadelphia. With Pittsburgh, I think it's a little bit more of a struggle. But I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Crosby's hot on Pittsburgh. Kessel's hot and Malkin's hot. So that's the downside to Philadelphia. And they already know how to play in the playoffs and win a cup. Multiple of them back to back, by the way. So that there's a benefit to that. The downside to Pittsburgh is their defense is even worse than it was last year. So there is that.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of coaching, I give it a benefit to the Pittsburgh Penguins, though. Like I've always said, I think Coach Sullivan is the best coach in the league. And I still stand by that. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Ryan, what do you think?
I honestly I kind of see it going totally opposite of what you do. I think Pittsburgh sweeps them in four. I don't trust Elliott. He's 23, 11, and 7 with a 90% save percentage, almost 91. I just don't trust him, and their backup isn't much better with a 90% save percentage and a 14 and 13-6 record. I just don't I just don't trust their goaltending to get them by this round, and you need solid goaltending in the playoffs.
You bring up a very interesting point, which is, and I agree with this, is Philadelphia has no middle ground. Philadelphia has, they're either hot or they're not.
Mhm.
So they're either gonna push it to a 7-game series or they're gonna lose in 4. Like
And I don't trust Dave Haxtell as a coach.
that's a fair statement, and that's why I said I think Sullivan has the edge here in terms of being a coach. They're an outstanding organization, the Pittsburgh Penguins, and I mean, quite honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. I don't even think I said it would go to a 7-game series, but I don't even think I picked Philadelphia to win it. Like I didn't actually pick Philly to win. Um, I still think Pittsburgh wins this series. I just think Philadelphia gives more run for their money than what people are giving them. But that being said, I can understand why people say like they're going to get swept. Because Philadelphia has no middle ground. They're either really hot, they're like really like inconsistent as a team. Um, so that's how I look at it, though. But yeah, any final thoughts?
Um, if you're a Philadelphia fan, pray to the hockey gods that Elliott turns up, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement, and um pray that the offense is there because you
Yeah.
need offense to even win this series at all. Um, all right. Well, let's jump into our predictions. Okay, so I
Okay.
actually, for those of you who are wondering, I do have this up, and you will be able to see me pick for Ryan. You'll be able to see a graphic of where he thinks everything's going to go. And I will do the same for me. Um, so, Ryan, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Which side are we starting with?
Let's go back to the West. Let's start with the
Okay.
West here. All right. Nashville, Colorado.
Sadly, I think Nashville, but I think it goes to a game six.
Okay. Nashville, game 6. Um, that's a fair pick. You have reasons for that?
I think Colorado, I think they'll be a little underestimated. Um, and I think Bernier can steal a couple games here and there. He's played pretty well since being forced to be the number one. Hasn't had much defense to rely on. So if he can get hot, he can steal a couple games, and then Nathan McKinnon with Miko Rantanen and Gabriel Landeskog, the MGM line. Um, if they can produce, then I think they can take a game or two.
I think that's a fair estimation, I think. Um, yeah. Okay. Let's move on. Winnipeg, Minnesota.
Winnipeg in 5 for me.
Okay. Keep in mind, for those of you watching, um, I'm not putting the games on it because it asks afterwards, but um, he's telling you so you guys know. So Winnipeg in 5. Um, we pretty much hammered home why we think this is gonna happen, but any reason why?
I think that the Winnipeg Jets just offer too much offensively, and with Connor Hellebuyck being as hot as he is, I think it's just too much for the Wild. And with coupled with Ryan Suter being out, um, I just think it's not in the cards for the Wild to advance to the second round as in the divisional playoff.
Fair, fair. All right, Vegas, LA.
What about your pick? Are you going with the Jets as
I'll
well?
do mine. I'll do my Western Conference pick. I'll go all the way down the Western Conference after you go
Okay.
down yours.
I'll go with the LA Kings. I just think the goaltending and the playoff experience is too much for the Vegas Knights, and them being an expansion team, we don't really know what to expect. Though I'll give Vegas Knights credit. 109 points speaks for itself. I can't not discredit that. With William Karlsson and Neil, I think this can go to 6, 7 games maybe, but I feel like the Kings lock it down.
That's a fair estimation. Um, yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I'll give my reasons why after when I give mine. All right, last one, and then I'll go through mine.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? Because we're gonna go all the way through. I'll just have you go through the entire bracket, and then
Okay.
I'll show later. San Jose, Anaheim.
I think the Ducks at 7. We talked about this earlier that this series is a toss up. It's a 7-game series. I give it to the Ducks because they have home ice. They're both physical. And Anaheim has a little bit more pace than them. So that's why I kind of give the credit to them. And with Evander Kane's antics and everything, I don't know what to expect out of him.
Yeah, I think that's a fair estimation. Evander Kane has not been Evander Kane on San Jose, and you have players like
He's like the Floyd Money Mayweather of hockey,
yeah.
and you just don't know what to expect. I mean, holding bricks of money like a cell phone in a picture in Vegas, I was like, really?
Yeah, yeah. And plus you got Kessler and Perry who are
Yeah.
instigators. I'm sorry. Sorry, I had to. All right. Let's
Mm-hmm.
move on. And then I'm gonna go back all the way down until you get your Western Conference who's gonna make it to the final,
Okay.
and then we'll do the East. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have Nashville and Winnipeg in your matchup.
Mm-hmm.
In the second round, who do you think wins and why?
I think the Winnipeg Jets win it because they offer more offensively. And to be honest, I think Connor Hellebuyck's a better goalie than PK Rene. As much as everyone loves PK Rene, and rightfully he's a Vezina candidate, but I think Connor Hellebuyck's right up there with him in the Vezina chase. And their defense is a little bit more solidified than Nashville, I think. And I think the Winnipeg Jets play in a not I wouldn't they play in the same division, but I think they just play stronger.
Well, and they were rocking back and forth with Nashville for that first spot anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I
I think
mean,
Winnipeg wins it.
yeah, if I were to have this matchup, it's a tough one. I gotta say that it's a tough one. So,
Mhm.
I don't even remember who I have in the second round. But I have it marked down. I do know that. All right, L.A. Anaheim, another California matchup.
Yeah. This is going to be a 7-game series as well.
Okay.
I think win it because of Jonathan Quick. With Gibson being out and Cam Fowler being out for the Ducks, I think that hurts them a little bit. And I think the Kings, they just offer more physicality than the Ducks, even though they're both physical. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Kings with Phaneuf as a bruiser, I just think he offers a little more toughness to them, and I think the Kings pull it out.
All right. Um, I think that's a fair estimation, I guess. I mean, honestly, both your second rounds are toss ups. I think.
Yeah,
You could go either way. So this one go. So L.A. Anaheim 7 games, and then you said Nashville Winnipeg was 6. Is that what you said?
yeah. And
All
I
right.
said Winnipeg.
Yeah, they're both tough matchups both
Yeah,
ways. All right. So conference final.
I
You
think the Winnipeg Jets beat the Kings because of speed and goals. I
okay?
just think I just think with Patrick Laine being on the second line and the second line of the Kings offering just Carter and who's been hurt most of the season, I just don't think they can catch up to the pacey Jets. So
Okay.
I have the Jets in the Stanley Cup Finals from the Western Conference.
Okay. All right, cool. So you have Winnipeg in the Stanley Cup final. Now let's go down the East. So Tampa Bay, New Jersey.
Who'd I have? I had Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay rolls New Jersey. I think it could be a sweep or a 5-game series.
Okay.
Um, I think Tampa Bay. The fact that they have James Van Riemsdyk on the third line, like, come on, that's
Yeah.
just that's just not fair.
Yeah, James Van Riemsdyk is a I mean, he played on the Chicago Blackhawks. I'm pretty sure he's a good defensive player.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um okay. Um
and then
any
with Vasilevsky as well, I just think their goaltending is a lot better than New Jersey Devils offer with Kincaid and I can't remember their
Schneider.
backup, but Schneider. I
Yeah,
think Kincaid just isn't ready for the task of the Tampa Bay Lightning snipers.
fair. I mean, you got Nikita Kucherov and all of
Yep.
them. Yeah, it's ridiculous Tampa Bay. Uh Boston Toronto, the strong
This is
matchup.
this is my toss-up matchup of the series. I really can't figure this one out. I went with the Maple Leafs because I feel like the scoring of Toronto might outweigh what Boston can offer in scoring wise. I think this will be a shootout matchup. Um, Tukarask will have not Tukarask. Who's Boston's goalie?
Um why am I blanking on his name? I can't remember his name right now. Anyways,
Well, anyway, I just think the Boston Bruins are gonna have their hands tied by
yeah,
Toronto, and so I think Toronto wins this one.
fair. Again, this was a toss-up matchup for me as well. I went back and forth. I like Toronto. I don't like Boston. Um,
I can't believe they're the only original six team in the playoffs.
who?
Toronto.
Boston's original
Oh,
six.
Boston.
So they're the only. Well, and Philadelphia is also original. So
Oh,
three.
three is the original six.
Yeah, but I mean, Toronto's the only Canadian team.
Yeah,
No, Winnipeg. Take that back.
Winnipeg.
I wish I could read a bracket.
Yeah.
um, all right. So you have Tampa Bay and Toronto in there. Let's move on to Washington, Columbus. Yeah.
See, this is where I think upset happens. I think the Columbus Blue Jackets, with Bobrovsky and Panarin, um, I think they ride or die with them. But I think they'll fly because Washington just for some reason they have struggles making it past the first and second round. I don't know why. They get to the playoffs and then they just die. It's
Yeah.
where it's like they've achieved greatness and they just don't want to play anymore. I don't get it. I don't understand it. It's the Stanley Cup, but for some reason they just can't get past the second round or and
Yeah.
sometimes the first.
Yeah.
So
They.
I think this is the first time that this is where they get upset with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
All right. Yeah. I can understand that. Again, this one is a. I think this one's a toss up. Not because the two teams are strong, but because they're probably the two weakest. Well, yeah, they're the most equal as the worst matchup in my opinion. I don't know.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Um, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh rolls Philadelphia in my opinion. I just think Sidney Crosby, avenging Malkin. Um, I just think they're too much. Even with Ryan Donato up there as well, on the third line, and Phil Kessel there as well with 92 points. I think they're too much for Philadelphia, so I think this is a 4-game sweep. It's my only sweep of the playoffs
Wait,
that happened.
who'd you say was on the third line?
Phil Kessel
Well, no, there's a guy before that. You said Malkin,
and
Crosby,
Donato.
Donato's on Boston.
Oh, Donato's on Boston. My bad.
Yeah. Um,
Sorry, I mix the Pittsburgh and Boston players up all the time.
they play very similar, so I can understand that. Yeah. Yeah, Phil Kessel is yeah, you got Phil Kessel. Yeah, so I can understand that matchup as well.
So I
Um
think it's a 4-game sweep.
so that one's a sweep.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
my only sweep of the series.
Okay. Um all right. Second round. All right. Tampa Bay versus Toronto.
Tampa Bay is just too much for Toronto. They have too many shooters, and Vasilevsky's been Vasilevsky. Yeah, he's been shaky, as you said, a little bit, but I think that's just because they kind of turned off after the lack of competition that they had when they locked up the Atlantic. Um, Even though it was a chase for the number one seed, but I think Tampa Bay rolls Toronto in 5 games.
Okay, that's fair. Um Columbus Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh in 7, I think.
Pittsburgh in 7. All right.
I
That
think,
one's a bit tougher, I think. I think
yeah,
Columbus can definitely give them a run for their money if they were to match up this way.
yeah, I think they could too. And I mean, I think people underrate Bobrovsky, and I know I've been chiming him up a little bit too much, but I think he can get hot and win win them a few games against Pittsburgh.
I definitely think he's a good goalie. He's just another goaltender who I think there are times he struggles where it's his fault, like he's inconsistent, but there are other times where the defense is the problem.
Hmm.
I think they kind of feed off each other. So I think he's a good goalie, and I definitely think I don't know if I were to have this matchup. I don't think I have this matchup, but if I were to have this matchup, um, I I don't know. I feel like I would have to pick Columbus in this one. But I mean, again, a toss up.
Yeah.
You picked definitely a toss up on that one too. Okay, so you have Pittsburgh going back to the conference final versus Tampa Bay.
For the third, well, Pittsburgh being their third straight in a year in a
Yeah.
row. Um, I think Tampa Bay beats them
Okay.
because of Steven Stamkos.
So you don't think Pittsburgh goes
Healthy.
all the way back to for a
No,
three-peat?
I
Okay.
I think three-peat's really hard to do in the Stanley Cup Finals,
I would
Stanley Cup
agree.
playoffs. I think that's just too hard. As much as Sullivan's been a good coach, um, I just don't see three going there 3 times in a row. That's just too hard to ask
I think
any team.
fair estimation. Um okay, so why does Tampa Bay make it there?
Tampa Bay makes it there because of obviously I think Vasilevsky and Steven Stamkos, James Van Reems or not James Van Reems, like um Steven Stamkos, Nikita Kucherov make it there for them.
Okay. They are a deep team. So, um that's fair. All right. So you have Winnipeg and Tampa Bay in the final. Who do you have winning it?
I have Tampa Bay Lightning, but I could see this one being as a toss up because
Okay.
both of them offer offensive numbers like you wouldn't believe.
I agree.
I think so. I think this will be a shootout. I think the but I think Tampa Bay edges them out because of Vasilevsky being a little bit better than Connor Hellebuyck and not. I think this can go into a couple overtimers, and this one goes to Game 6.
Okay. How many goals do you think are going to be scored in the Stanley Cup final?
37.
37. That's actually roughly what I had. Um okay. So, your pick for the Stanley Cup champion from what you see now is Tampa Bay. I think that's a solid pick. I think a lot of people pick Tampa Bay this year to win the cup with how well they're playing. I think another pick, a solid pick that people are picking is Boston. Um, I don't know. There's a lot of picks out of. I think those two picks are the most solid pick and good reasons to pick them. The West is a little bit more difficult. But I think the East, those are pretty good picks. Um, Winnipeg, yeah, I can't remember where I have them. Let me look to see where I have them. Yeah, I have them going to the conference final. So,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about I'll go into that here in a minute when I do mine. But yeah, I have them going to the conference final too. So, Winnipeg is definitely a force to be reckoned with. So I agree with that. Um, I, there's a lot of things I agree on. I think here, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. So, um, I'm gonna go into my bracket now.
Okay.
So here's how I look at my bracket. I
Are
try
you
and
starting in
pick.
the East or West?
I'll start in the West again.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I always try and figure out which one will be the upset here. I think there's some pretty strong matchups, and then there's, uh, ones that are just like, on the fence because they're so strong against each other. And then there are matchups that are like, well, they're set to win this, but this could be the upset. And then there are other matchups where it's just clear. So I kind of, go back and forth on a couple of them here, but so first round between Colorado, Nashville. Again, I pick Nashville. I Colorado. This game I picked to go to. I picked it to go to 5.
Yeah.
I don't see a reason why it should go to anything really higher from a stat sheet standpoint. Um, I don't think it's going to be a sweep. I do think Colorado can steal one game. But it wouldn't surprise me if it's a sweep. I don't know. Colorado is just so weak at the current moment with Varlamov being injured and Johnson being gone.
I think Varlamov's a little overestimated. I think Bernie, if you give him the number one spot, I think he could shine. I just think Varlamov's a little overrated.
I think they're both pretty equal. I would agree on that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I don't think Colorado's going to have the ability to really do a whole lot. I think McKinnon and all of them, even if they do get hot, it's just not going to be enough for Nashville. Nashville's so strong with their 4 lines that it's ridiculous at the current moment. So that's kind of just the amount of depth alone, I think, puts Nashville into the next round for me. Winnipeg versus Minnesota. I picked Winnipeg. I picked 6 games. I figured Minnesota could steal a couple because I think Winnipeg actually is somewhat inconsistent in defense, and because of that, I figured Minnesota could steal a game or two, and that's why I have it at 6. But I still have Winnipeg winning it. So I still have Winnipeg winning it. So I have the same second round as you. Moving on down to the Pacific, Vegas versus LA. I actually picked Vegas. Now I keep going back and forth on this one.
Yeah.
And quite honestly, I think the reason that I picked Vegas at the time was because their offense was so strong. My one worry with Vegas is goaltending. But I think I'm gonna have to stick with Vegas on this one. Actually, yeah, I'm gonna have to stick with Vegas, knocking out LA. LA's just been inconsistent enough for me to have to go with Vegas on this one. Don't get me wrong, LA's a strong team, and I think if LA had gone to San Jose first and met Vegas in the next round, it would have been a different story. But I think that LA meeting first round, both teams are fresh. Now, I will say Jonathan Quick can make a big difference, and I think he will. The question is, will Vegas's offense be the difference maker? If Vegas's offense isn't able to get past Quick, then LA wins this. So, but I predict that their offense is going to be hot, and LA is going to just dominate. Or I'm sorry, Vegas is just going to probably dominate like the first or one or two games at most, and then after that they're going to be grudge matches, and it's going to go to. I said it's going to go to 6 games. I could see it going to 7 though.
A cool side story to that Vegas Knights LA Kings matchup is they're opening the NHL playoffs with a free Logic concert outside the stadium.
So that is pretty cool. So that is pretty cool. Okay. And then Anaheim San Jose. Again, I have this going to a 7-game series. This is what I said. Said it's going to be a grudge match. I also picked Anaheim out west. Between Vegas and Anaheim, I'm assuming by this point or in this round that Anaheim gets healthy again, at least with John Gibson. I think Anaheim takes it. I think it's going to be a struggle. Don't get me wrong. I think that they need all their 4 lines just dominating, and I think they can do it. Vegas has the offensive edge, in my opinion, between Vegas and Anaheim, but I think defense wins games in this scenario, and so because of that, I pick Anaheim to win between Vegas and Anaheim. And plus, I think Vegas will be a little bit banged up coming into the next round, coming from LA.
So you have the Ducks in the conference finals with the Jets?
Yep. Between Winnipeg and Anaheim, I predict Anaheim to beat Winnipeg. I give a lot of credit to Winnipeg. I think they're going to make, if they get this far, I think they're going to make some noise. I think it's not going to be a sweep like Anaheim played Winnipeg that one year and just destroyed them. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to go to 6 games. But I gotta give the edge to Anaheim in this scenario. Bigger bodies, better defense, and if assuming Gibson is healthy, better goaltending in my opinion. But well, actually, I should say equal goaltending, not better goaltending. I think it's equal goaltending. Connor Hellebuyck's definitely a solid goaltender.
Oh yeah.
Defense is just going to be an issue, I think, for Winnipeg. That's how I look at it. So I have Anaheim in the finals. Going out east. First round, Tampa Bay, New Jersey. I have Tampa Bay. As well. I don't see a reason that New Jersey should advance. I have Tampa Bay winning in 6.
Yeah, I don't trust Kincaid stealing a series.
Yeah, that and Taylor Hall carrying you to another round I think that's going to be tough against a deep team like Tampa Bay. And plus defensively, New Jersey's just not there. So I don't know. I go with Tampa Bay in this one. Toronto versus Boston. I have this going to a 6-game series, but I could see it going to a 7-game series. I picked Boston. I just think that Boston is better defensively. That's where I see it. I want Toronto to win this series, and so they're going to be the team I'm cheering for. Close series, I think, all the way through, even if it gets to 6 games, and especially if it gets to 7. But I think Boston has the edge here. Washington versus Columbus. This is a matchup I go back and forth on. on my bracket, I have Washington, but I think I'm gonna have to, sitting here talking to you about it,
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna have to go with Columbus on this one. I think
Hmm.
Columbus can do it.
I think so too, and that's a great for that small town of Columbus too.
Oh yeah, and it's just, I mean, Washington. I don't see the good. Here's the good thing with Washington: they don't have the pressure of winning a Stanley Cup. I don't think a lot of people are expecting them to win a Stanley Cup, so there is that benefit to Washington. But I think their players are just they struggle way too much right now in the playoffs. And I got to give the edge to Columbus to win the first round. Um, Next round, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. I also have Pittsburgh. This one is a 7-game series. I think it's going to be a grudge match. I think Philadelphia comes out guns blazing. Um, and I think it's going to be a tight series all the way through. But I could also see Pittsburgh just rolling over, or
Hmm.
Pittsburgh just destroying Philadelphia. But I think it'll go to a 7-game series. That's probably my only risky prediction in terms of that
Yeah.
series. Um, Next matchup, I have well, in the second round, I should say, I have Tampa Bay and Boston. I picked Tampa Bay as well to move on to the conference. I think Tampa Bay just is able to pull that off. Boston is more even, I think, with Tampa Bay than Toronto. So it'll be a tight matchup, I think. But I think Tampa Bay is able to pull it off. I think they have better offensive firepower. Columbus, Pittsburgh. I think I'm gonna have to go with Columbus on this one, going to the conference final. Um, I had Washington going to the conference final and beating Pittsburgh, but I got to go with Columbus on this one. Like I said,
You're
so
picking Columbus over Pittsburgh?
yeah, I think it goes to a 6-game series, maybe even a 7-game series, but I think Columbus can beat Pittsburgh.
Did I
Um,
talk you into that, or
no, well, just talking it out with people helps me process things, but um, no, I honestly think Columbus will go to the conference final. I don't think Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh's too weak on defense. That's where I land, and I think Panarin's an outstanding player. Why Chicago ever got rid of him is stupid. And he has made a huge difference in Columbus. So I gotta go with Columbus on this one. Plus, I think they want revenge from last year, and I think they can do it. So I think Columbus goes to the conference final. Like you said, Bobrovsky's a decent goaltender. I think their defense is pretty good. Tortorella's won a Stanley Cup. A lot of people like ignore that fact. He won a Stanley Cup
yeah?
in Tampa Bay. So he's not a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination. I think they can do it. I think they can do it. I really do.
Hmm.
Um huh?
Nothing. Just don't tell Tommy you told him Panarin was a bad trade.
Oh, well, it it honestly was. I think Brandon Saad for Panarin was awful. They needed Panarin. They don't get me wrong, they needed Saad as well, but I don't know. I don't want to talk a whole lot about that trade, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's Panarin is outstanding for Columbus right now.
Hmm.
Um so in my conference finals I have Tampa Bay and Columbus. I give the edge to Tampa Bay still.
Yeah. I think you
I
have to.
Yeah, I really don't see a reason unless there's major massive injury to someone or whatever, then it might be a big deal. But I think Tampa Bay takes this, assuming everyone's healthy.
Yep.
Um, I think
I
Tampa
think we
Bay
all
takes
have
it.
to caveat that with everyone
Yeah,
being
I'll
healthy.
caveat that here right now. Yeah, we assume this is assuming people are healthy, or as healthy as possible. Um, yeah, I think Tampa Bay takes this. They're too deep. Columbus is not as deep as Tampa Bay by any stretch of the imagination, offensively or defensively. So I got to
Hmm.
give the edge to Tampa Bay on this one as well. Um, for my Stanley Cup final, I have Anaheim and Tampa Bay. I actually predicted this at the beginning of the season. Um, and I did not intend for this to happen. I kind of just went back through the bracket to see where I end up. So I'm sticking with it all the way through the season. Tampa Bay, Anaheim. Well, I should say I picked Tampa Bay to go there like in December. But
Yeah.
but I picked Anaheim to go all the way to the final at the beginning of the season. I'm going with Anaheim to win the Stanley Cup. I think they can do it. They're I think they're better in terms of defense. Offensively, Tampa Bay is strong, but I mean, I gotta give the edge to Anaheim on this one. No, I'm not trying to do this to be biased.
No.
I'm being legit here. I think Anaheim is deep enough four lines versus Tampa Bay's deep four lines. I mean, I think it's going to be a grudge match. I definitely think this
Yeah.
series could go to 7 games. I just think Anaheim has not only the coaching ability. Well, I should say both coaches are pretty equal in this regard, but I think Anaheim is just they can hit you with so many different types of play, and Tampa Bay only has speed. Um, Anaheim has speed, and they have heavy hitting lines.
Yes,
Not
they
only
do. They
that,
have very heavy hitters.
not only that, you got to give Corey Perry and Ryan Getzloff some credit on where they are this season with how old they are. I I got to give Anaheim the edge here. In terms of goals scored, I picked 35. Um, so I gotta give. I mean, you and I ended up pretty close in terms of goals scored. And we definitely ended up pretty close in terms of our brackets. Um, but yeah,
Huh?
this is this is an interesting year, I think. Um, so yeah, I picked 35 goals. I thought it was going to be a little bit lower scoring.
Yeah.
With Anaheim being in it, but with Winnipeg being in it, I could see it being a little bit higher scoring as well.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, we were really close on our brackets.
yeah. By the way, for those of you watching, no, we did not really consult, like, be like, oh, I think this is gonna happen. We didn't really do that. We kind of he like picked his bracket, and I just kind of like listened to it, you know. So, but yeah, um, yeah. What are let's end this by saying, um, our our most like the biggest matchups first round that you want to see happen, or that you're going to see happen, and that you're most excited for. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. The most exciting matchup that I'm looking forward to is the Ducks and Sharks,
Okay.
and probably the Boston Toronto series. I think I picked both of them to be 7 games, so I think those will be the most enticing series
Fair.
of the first round.
My top, I have 3. Vegas, LA, Anaheim, San Jose, and Boston, Toronto. Those are my 3. Only reason I picked Vegas, LA is because Vegas is new, and I think a lot of people want to see that,
Yeah.
see how they do. But those are my top 3. I think the most watched series will probably be Vegas, LA, and then Boston, Toronto with a close second.
Hmm.
So, what do you think is your least favorite matchup out of these?
My least favorite, I just because I picked it as a sweep, is Pittsburgh Philly. I
Okay.
just I just don't see much in that series, or probably Tampa Bay, New Jersey.
Okay. I think that's a fair. Those are fair picks. Mine is Winnipeg, Minnesota.
Yeah.
I just think that one is just. I don't know why it just doesn't appeal to me. There's no. I think Winnipeg is just. They should have it in the bag. Minnesota's just weak in my opinion. But New Jersey, Tampa Bay, and Pittsburgh, Philly are good picks as well for that.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else.
Well, do
Um,
we want to talk about the playoff structure a little bit, like to just describe it to fans at all?
yeah. So yeah, we could do that. So for those of you who don't follow hockey or are new to it, maybe or unsure how this works, so um, the top three teams in each division earn a spot in the playoffs. Um, and if you can actually see here, you'll see like by Nashville, there's a number one. So they got the first spot, or the first. They're the number one seed out of the Central Division. Same with Vegas; they're the number one seed in the Pacific. And then here we have the Metropolitan. Washington got the number one there, and then in the Atlantic, Tampa Bay got that. Um, so the number one seed faces the one of the wild cards. I believe the Pacific Division faces the number one wild card, and then the Central faces the number two wild card. So it's
I'm pretty sure it's by point total. So Nashville got the number one seed, so since they got the number one seed, they'll face the number two wild card, which is why they're facing Colorado.
oh,
And
okay.
since Vegas Knights got the number two seed in the West, they got the um, first wild card.
Okay. That makes sense. I just know that the wild cards end up facing each other, or facing the number one seed. I mean, sorry,
Yeah.
should clarify. Of and they kind of split up. There's only two wild cards in each conference. So in the Western Conference, there's only two wild card spots, and in the Eastern, there's only two wild card spots. LA got in the wild card this year. There was actually a fight for the number three spot in the Pacific Division, and it was Anaheim and LA, and somehow Anaheim ended up winning the last three games of the season, so they got the number two spot, and San Jose like lost a game. So,
Mm-hmm.
so the number two and the number three spots end up facing each other in each division.
And the
Um,
reason behind that wasn't it because to increase divisional rivalries?
I'm not quite sure why they have it that way. I think there are people who argue that it should not be this way. Um,
I think I'm one of them because I would rather see the top three team. Is it two per division per conference, or is it three per division per conference?
three,
Well,
three.
I would like to see those three divisional champions get a spot, and then the five by point total. That's how I'd like to see it.
So explain that to me because I'm not sure I followed.
So you have the three divisions, right, in the Western, right? You have the Central, the Pacific.
Hold on. Three divisions or three
Yeah.
teams? Oh, okay. Hold on, I misunderstood. Okay, there's two divisions per conference.
Okay, then I'd like to see the two division champions get the one and two seed, depending on point total. Then I'd like to see the rest of the six spots fight between their maximum points. Like if they,
Oh, okay. I
that's how I
see.
would like to see it, because that's how the
Okay,
NBA does it.
okay. I can understand that. Um, that's fair. I think I honestly don't mind this setup. Um, but everyone has their own opinion on it. I don't. Quite honestly, as long as there's a couple different ways to do it, and I think they're all pretty good. This way just kind of is like the way I look at this is like if you're gonna go to a like if you're paying attention to like March Madness, right? So leading up into March Madness, you have like Big Ten tournament and like all this stuff. So whoever wins that tournament gets a like a lock into it or whatever. I kind of look at all these little brackets going into the conference final as like winning your like thing, like winning the Big Ten tournament. So like
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of how I look at it. But understand, I mean, there's people who like argue back and forth about this stuff. But current matchup, this is how they match it up.
Yep.
Um, I don't think it was always this way. I think Gary
No,
Bettman
this
changed
was
it.
this was I think after the expansion that they wanted to change it, and the other thing was this is how it used to be in the 70s and 80s, but then they changed it in the 90s to point total. Then they went back to this divisional rivalry kind of stuff for the expansion teams and everything.
Yeah. When he says expansion teams, by the way, Vegas is not the expansion team. So he's not talking about this year they changed it. He's talking about the last time they did an expansion.
Yeah.
So and Anaheim was in that expansion. But yeah. So excuse me. Yeah, that's how we end up with where we're at right now in terms of matchups and whatnot. Yeah. Any final points that you want to give? Right. Well, actually, let me say this. Brian, would you be willing to do another one of these when we get to the second round?
Oh yeah, for sure. I would like, yeah, especially if the Avalanche upset the Nashville Predators. I would love to
Yeah.
see that happen, but I would totally be down to see where our second rounds actually matched up to our brackets. That'd be cool.
Yeah. Um yeah, that would be cool. So let me actually I probably should like screenshot your thing. So you had LA, you had Anaheim, and then you had LA again, you Winnipeg. You had Pittsburgh winning this one,
Hmm.
and you had Toronto winning this one.
No, I had Tampa Bay.
Oh no, I was going because I picked Boston,
Okay.
and so I'm putting Toronto back in, and then you had Tampa Bay going to the final versus Winnipeg, and Tampa Bay winning it.
Yep.
So let me see if I have this correct to make sure I remember correctly. So I'm just gonna go to the second round. Second round: Nashville, Winnipeg, and then LA and Anaheim
Yep.
on the West, and then you have Winnipeg, LA,
Mm.
and then Winnipeg,
Yep.
right? Okay, and then um, in the East, Tampa Bay, Toronto,
Yes.
and then you had Columbus and Pittsburgh, and you had Pittsburgh winning that, and they're
Yes.
playing Tampa Bay, and then Tampa Bay going to the final, and then
Hmm.
Tampa Bay winning it, and then you had 37.
Yep.
So okay, actually, while I have you, I'll do this for those of you watching. This is how they do the game series. You had Nashville winning in how many games?
6.
6. Winnipeg in how many versus Minnesota?
5.
Vegas versus LA in how many games? Or I'm
5
sorry,
games.
LA. Yeah, you had LA, not Vegas. Um, Anaheim and San Jose, you had 7, right?
7. Yep.
Tampa Bay, New Jersey,
5.
5. Boston and Toronto,
7.
7. Washington and Columbus, how many games?
6.
6. And then Pittsburgh and Philly, you had 4, right?
Yes.
Okay, I remember that one. Okay. So I'm gonna look at this for those of you to see it. Okay, so this is his final thing. I'm actually gonna screenshot this one because that way I can just pull it up for you guys to watch it or to look at it. So and I'll change my mind back to what I think it is here. So, but anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment down below who you think's gonna win the Stanley Cup. Who do you think's the most deadly team in the league to win the Stanley Cup? I bet there's gonna be a lot of Tampa Bay people.
Oh yeah.
Or Boston people. So yeah. Anything you want to add, Ryan?
No, I think we pretty much covered everything.
Fair. As always, I will be doing another one of these once everyone gets matched up in the second round. I'm not gonna do one of these for every team that we end up figuring out that made it. If I feel like I'm gonna do that, I'll do a short video on each team or something like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, for those of you watching, feel free. Make your own brackets, by the way. That would be awesome. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys think. But Ryan, do you want to promote your own podcast or?
No, well, I started my own Avs podcast. It's called a Peter Forsberg Winter Wonderland. So it's just Avalanche fans talking Avalanche hockey, and we'll have a preview of each game for the playoffs because it's the first time in like 4 years that we made it. So it's pretty exciting, and I might not have one for game 2 because I might be going to it. So we'll see.
Are you hosting it?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so he's the host of his podcast. That you guys should check it out. How can they get in contact
Via
with that?
SoundCloud and YouTube.
Okay.
Sorry, my dog was about to puke or something, so
it's all good. What should they search for?
A Forsberg Winter Wonderland.
Forsberg Winter Wonderland. Okay, so feel free to search for that. I'm assuming there's spaces in that.
Yes, there is.
Okay. So yeah, feel free to search for that YouTube and SoundCloud. Definitely check out his podcast. If you're an Avs fan or just in general. But yeah, and then obviously I'm here. This is the Captains at Center Ice podcast. I'm only on YouTube. I don't do SoundCloud just because I find that it's better for me because I like giving visual aids, and it's kind of hard to do that on SoundCloud, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Anyways, those are our brackets. I hope you guys enjoyed. I don't have anything else to add. Do you want to add anything, Ryan?
Go Avalanche, I guess.
Go Avs. And I will say go Ducks. And I will also end this as we were not biased when we picked these, by the way.
Yeah. I felt those were legit picks.
Yeah. And Ryan knows me. He knows I'm not, when I say I'm picking the Ducks, he knows I'm not doing it out of like fandom, like being a huge fan of them. Like I don't do that. I'm legit with my picks. If the Rangers were in it as well, I would be legit with them. Which, by the way, if they would have made it, they would have lost first round. So yeah. Anyway, I'm being serious with a lot of my picks. Well, with all of my picks, not a lot of them, all of them, I'm being serious on what I think. And like I said, it'll be fun to see where I'm wrong. I'm sure I'll be wrong on some of these. First round, I think is like not that bad, and then you're like, oh crap, like that screwed up my whole bracket. It's like it's like the NCAA thing. So,
yep.
But yeah. I will talk to you guys. Well, I guess we will talk to you guys when the second round happens. Be sure to tune in tomorrow, and I think you have to have your bracket in by like 5 tomorrow or something like that. So yeah, 5 p.m. not 5 a.m. So yeah, make sure to get your brackets in, and yeah. That being said, this was the Captains at Center Ice podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.